Environment Sustainability, September 20th, Wednesday at about 3:16 PM. Can I have a roll call?
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Ms. Simon.
Here.
Ms. Stevens. Ms. Stevens is absent. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Schrein.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
There is a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilman Miller is in attendance.
Public comment?
No, Madam Chair, no one is signed in.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from July 26th?
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes adopted. First matter, can we have read for the record?
Resolution number 2023-0252, making awards on requisition number 11808 to various providers in the total amount not to exceed $8,353,645.74 for youth workforce employment, education, and training services in connection with Comprehensive Case Management Employment Program.
Thank you so much. Hello.
Hi, good
Your name?
afternoon. I'm Mary Kelly. I'm the Program Administrator at Ohio Means Jobs, Cleveland, Cuyahoga County. With me today are Laura Chalker, our Deputy Director, and leadership from every provider who is seeking an award today on this RFP. We're recommending an award on RQ 11808 for youth workforce employment, education, training, and follow-up services in connection with the Comprehensive Case Management Employment Program, or CCMEP. CCMEP braids federal funding from Temporary Assistance for Needy Families with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act to serve in-school and out-of-school youth and young adults between the ages of 14 and 24. CCMEP is an individualized and achievement-oriented program. It's designed to help low-income youth build career paths, find employment, and break the cycles of poverty. Participants are guided to create and achieve educational and/or occupational goals, plans to gain the training, credentials, and work experience they need to obtain and keep employment, and to then advance in their chosen careers. The program offers 14 different services based upon an individual participant's goals, needs, and the challenges that they might face, and the services are provided in a positive and supportive environment. This particular RFP was closed on March 20th, 2023. 11 bids were pulled and submitted for review, with 5 programs recommended for contracts. We're requesting suspension of a third reading.
Second reading?
A second reading, sorry.
Okay. Any questions? How did these youth find out about the program? And what's the age range? of
The age
youth?
range is 14 to 24. They find out through a variety of ways. The Job and Family Services of Cuyahoga County is assisting us in a new marketing program. We use social media, flyers, people go to outreach events, every event in the city that you can imagine. We host our own events at Ohio Means Jobs, Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, and also our vendors do a great job on their own, through their own organizations and their marketing and communications teams to outreach and try and bring people in.
Question, Councilwoman?
Yeah, through the chair to Mary Kelly. Good to see you.
Hi, nice to see you.
For the out-of-school services, is there any coordination with our FCFC?
I don't believe so strongly at this time, but that's certainly something that we could pursue to create a partnership to raise the awareness and get people in. We do work very closely with Job and Family Services and our Health and Human Services sister agencies such as Reentry. So I'm sure that they're aware of the program and are potentially promoting it, but we could certainly get in contact with them and see if there's some synergies and
That's Director
collaborations.
Martin, so
Sure.
if Levine is listening,
Okay.
we'll make a connection.
That sounds
with-
great.
With you too.
We'd be looking
because
forward to
there's-
that.
There's students that go to their out-of-school services, and they would probably benefit of knowing about what you guys do and what we fund on another spectrum. So thank you.
Absolutely, that's a great idea.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman Miller?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And how many agencies bid on this contract?
11.
And to what extent are the selected contractors the same or different from the ones that we're currently using for this program?
There is one new large provider called Dynamic Workforce Solutions. Their program is something called Dynamic Futures. They bid to serve 500 participants, and we have some of our returning strongest providers, such as Ohio Guidestone Towards Employment, Tri-C Advanced Technology, and Youth Academies.
So, why are only 5 of them listed on the legislation?
Because that's all of them. We have Dynamic Workforce
Oh, okay.
Solutions, Towards Employment, Guidestone. Tri-C has 2 separate programs that were the subject of 2 different bids, and that's because one serves out of school and one serves in school.
And Dynamic Workforce is new? Is that-
Yes, sir.
And are there any that were providing services currently but did not succeed in this round?
Yes, there were, I think, 3 providers.
And who were they?
That was Youth Opportunities Unlimited, the Centers, and a smaller program called LEAP.
And did they bid on it, or did they just choose not to participate in this round?
They all bid on it.
And what were the factors that you used in deciding who was going to be selected?
We went through the county's regular procurement process, so we came up with a scoring rubric based upon factors that we always had. And then we had about 17 people on scoring teams, and that was the way that the scores did come out.
And is the scoring more heavily weighted toward quality of services, or is it more heavily weighted toward cost factors such as how many youth can be served for a given amount of money, or is it a blend of those two?
It's a blend between, the financial considerations, and we wouldn't want to fund something that seems out of line, but they were all similarly situated, and so, the rubric covered program design, program delivery proposals, the proposed times, places, and the curriculum involved, and the different services provided, the robustness of it. We looked at a variety of different factors.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up. Any questions, follow-up? I just remember LEAP coming in, that's a smaller group, right?
Yes.
That we gave a shot at, I think, at least one cycle ago.
Yes, we
And I thought
did.
they were doing well. What kind of factors would have affected their return?
They were primarily in school, and they served developmentally or physically challenged students. COVID really made it difficult for them to deliver their services since they were solely based in the city of Cleveland and in the Cleveland Municipal Schools. So there was some fluctuation and some issues even in the school buildings getting them to be able to get back into practice how they were. They're going through some changes. So also what they do doesn't necessarily fit all that well with the CCMEP programming. So unfortunately, they were not renewed this year, but certainly they can bid on future RFPs.
It wasn't an exact fit.
Not necessarily, no.
And what about YOU? If you can, speak to a little bit, like they've been part of this for a long time.
Yes, they have. It was just how the proposals were scored and just the different factors that came in and the strengths of their RFPs and their submittals.
Okay, so we're trying out Dynamic Workforce.
Yes.
Have they been part of this before?
No, this is their first time working with youth, but they are a national corporation. They have contracts, and they've done WIOA programming and youth programming in 16 different states and jurisdictions, I believe. They also are our new business services provider since about earlier last year. So now they have 2 sections of business with us.
So Kaiser is not from Cuyahoga, but do they have an office here under the DBA
yes.
Dynamic?
Yes.
How recently did they open that local office?
Well, they're doing business here as a result of this contract.
Now, do they have an
now.
actual office, or just they've,
They have elected to headquarter their services out of the OMJCC building.
okay. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, then I'll make a motion as, if everybody's, so well, somebody can make the motion to move it under suspension, second reading.
Move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so this will be at the next full council meeting next week, and we will, with a recommendation to pass it under second reading suspension.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to just quickly, we started late, but just point out who's here and from what organization?
Oh,
Since they made the
sure.
trek down here.
Sure. We've got Amy French and Kirsten Watkins from Ohio Guidestone. We've got Joan Crosby and Melanie Green from Towards Employment. Mary Kay Bitterman's back in the back, and Monica Collins Bryant from Tri-C.
Did anybody come from the new group? Did you say Kaiser?
Kaiser, I do not see them here. They were invited.
Huh, okay. What?
Well, but what I will say is the program director had an unfortunate lawn accident over the weekend. I'm sorry.
Wait, what? Somebody,
He was cutting his lawn and like a piece of his neighbor's fence kind of like flew off and injured his leg. So I'm sure I'm sure he would be here but for that. I hope I'm not doing a HIPAA violation.
I didn't need a doctor's note,
No, I
but okay, we're fine. Just,
No,
okay.
honest to God.
Okay. Okay, thanks. We're done. I appreciate you. Thanks, everybody, for coming down and for the work. And I didn't ask, but before we started the meeting, things are going really well with the programming, and it's just learning how to deal with this. It's an evolution and experience to work with the youth and people who need to get a career path, and it just takes time, as we discussed, so I appreciate it. It's not an overnight type of program, because you just have to learn about what the youth need and how it's going to really be effective for them. So with time, I think it's going to get better, and I think that's what I heard before the meeting. So thanks for your work. Okay. You can go if you want, or hang around for the Planning Commission ordinance, which is the next one. Can you read that, Madam Clerk?
Ordinance number 2023-0015, amending section 206.12 of the Cuyahoga County Code to codify the county's planning regions represented by the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission and to clarify the procedures for the designation of alternates.
Hello.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael King, council staff. I'm here on behalf of Director Mary Serby of the Planning Commission, who is unable to attend because she's out of town for a congressional visit this week. But basically, the genesis of this legislation comes from an effort by the Planning Commission earlier this year to update its bylaws, and Chairwoman Simon has played a critical role in developing those new bylaws. But in reviewing the bylaws, the Planning Commission identified a couple of specific areas where they felt that it would be prudent to update the county code as well. So they're doing this first and then plan to update their bylaws before the end of this year. This legislation only does effectively two things. First, it codifies the 8 planning regions that the Planning Commission has already established and used to organize its activities throughout the county. I passed out a map before the meeting began, so you can see what those planning regions are. Those are unchanged. Those are the planning regions they've had in the past, and basically, the executive, basically what this legislation would do would urge the executive to continue the practice of appointing members from each of those planning regions so that there's geographic diversity in the county. And so you have people from these different regions weighing in on planning decisions in their area. And then the second thing it does is it cleans up language dealing with the designation of alternates to bring it in line with the Ohio revised codes procedures. And this is very confusing and a little bit convoluted, but there are a couple different procedures for the designation of alternates, depending on whether or not the member is a county board member or another board member appointed by the executive and confirmed by council. Really, the only notable change here is that moving forward, alternates to the Planning Commission for non-county members, meaning those appointed by the executive and confirmed by council, not including the council members and the county executive, will be coming to council for confirmation as well. And our hope and I think intent is that the alternates are known at the time the member is appointed so that they can be confirmed at the same time. But in either case, those alternates will be coming to council, and that's by virtue of how the revised code specifies designations of alternates work for those 8 other members. So as I mentioned earlier, once this legislation is approved, the Planning Commission plans to update its bylaws later this year accordingly. And I'm happy to take any questions about the legislation itself. Jennifer Carafa is here from the Planning Commission if there are any questions about operations of the Planning Commission, and Wesley Kretsch from the Law Department is here if there are any questions about the updates to the bylaws. He has helped the Planning Commission draft those. So with that, I'll turn it back to Madam Chair.
Thank you. Very much helpful. Thank you. Any questions, Councilwoman?
To the chair, to Mr. King, since I sit on that planning commission, is that inclusive of us and our alternates, or?
No, and that's actually, that's one of the distinctions. Basically, the way the revised code says is that the county members, so the executive and the 2 members of council, you can just designate your own alternates. There's no separate approval necessary. You just need to do it at the start of, our practice has been to do it at the start of a new council session. So at the start of every 2 years, those members appointed to the Planning Commission then designate their own alternates. There's no other steps necessary. For the other members, for all of those representing the different planning regions, they would need to designate alternates that would then come to council for confirmation.
Councilman Miller?
Madam Chair, why is it that the city of Cleveland only gets 1 planning region out of 8, even though it's almost a third of the county's population, to Mr. King?
That question might be better answered by Director Serby or Jennifer here today. The planning regions have been established for several years. I don't know how long these specific planning regions, I do believe they do occasionally get updated now and then, but they've been in effect for a while now. So they've been sort of grandfathered into this particular ordinance, but I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Well, before Jennifer speaks, I've always asked that question in general, like, how do these regions come about? Are they fair? Does it make sense? And I think they're consistent with NOACA, right? We want to be consistent with other agencies. But go ahead, Jennifer.
That is correct. There is some consistency with other agencies. And these 8 planning regions have been in effect, I believe, since the RPC, the Regional Planning Commission. So it's not just certain years, it's decades. So how they were originally configured, but they have remained consistent.
And excuse me, can you just state your name for the record?
I'm Jennifer Carafa. I'm the Business Services Manager for the County Planning Commission.
And Cleveland has its own planning commission, so they have their own to govern, typically with an alternate. Any other questions?
No, that'll do it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer does a great job, and Wes, attorney from our law department, has been excellent with reviewing these bylaws. So I want to thank both of you, and not these bylaws, the bylaws and now the ordinance, but we'll continue on with the bylaws because there's other changes that we don't want to codify or not necessary, correct? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And no other questions on this? Okay. People are not excited about this, but can we have a motion? It can go 3 readings to,
I'm excited.
I would make a
sit on there.
motion to move this to the full council.
I'm excited. We're at the end of the
Right.
day. We're okay.
Supporting county
Right.
work.
okay, wait, who?
I'll
mo-
make a motion
Okay.
to move this
I want to make
ordinance
the
forward.
motion.
Okay,
Oh, he wants to
President will
I will
second.
second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, Councilman Miller, for sitting in on this. Meeting adjourned.